Hello from Gardening at Douentza here in Ireland, and today I'm going to lift and divide various Sarracenia that I have in planters outdoors in the garden. So this is a lifting and Sarracenia dividing video where we are going to take the clumps and, well, just divide them up. Okay, let's do it. And so here we are in the west side of my garden where I have this Sarracenia planter, and we're going to divide these ones today. In this planter here we have Sarracenia alata hybrids, and it's the beginning of April now, so I've probably left this a bit late in the day for dividing, because as you can see the plants have started to send up some new growth, including this flower spike right here, this wibbly one here. But we're going to lift them and divide them anyway, because it's not so much that I want to have more plants for elsewhere in the garden. I want to divide these to ensure that the flowering vigour and the leafing vigour is maintained. Now the first thing we're going to do is to cut back the existing pitchers. And Sarracenia, of course, are a deciduous plant like the other ones you see around you here, which I've left here purposefully so that you will realise, you know, there's no magic about this plant. And over winter, if it maintains its leaves, they do get really, really dog-eared and tatty looking, so that in order for the plant to look well, you need to cut them back. And I made a video about this a while ago, which again I'll link to at the very end of this one. Now there are some new leaves like this that is very juvenile, and I think I could probably leave that in place. Again, do this job earlier in the season, late January, February probably, to do it at optimal time. So just cutting back all of these leaves, and then we'll be in a better position to see what's going on with our plants. So now that we're all cut back, what I'm going to do is lift these plants, and you can see there's a lot of moss growing on top of them, which extends down quite a bit. So when you lift the plants, what's important is not to damage any of the roots, because the roots are what are going to help get it going again. So I'm just working the trowel down. And around, going quite deep because of all this moss on top. And here we have like a big clump of Sarracenia alata hybrid of some sort, and I'm just looking to lift it without doing damage. And here you can see that this clump has kind of merged into this clump. I'm not sure I can lift them separately, so I will, with my trusty trowel, move a bit along and try and ease these out, and making sure to dig all the way around, because I really don't want those roots to tear. Just kind of easing them up here from the back, where I can see I'm not doing too much damage. I'm going to put my hands in here now and try and get under the clump. And here we go. I think, whoops, we have one clump that is gonna lift up. And here we have one clump of Sarracenia, which I'm going to divide. Let's put it in the trug. This one here, of course, as well, should just lift out now. And here's my second clump. To think these were originally all individual plants. It's lucky I'm not precious about the names. Oh look, here we have a label. And this is what happens to labels when they're left for a long time, especially in moist soil. They completely disintegrate. Healthy looking clump there. We can see over here there is a little something. And actually, you know, I'm just going to, even though this one I won't divide, I'm going to take it out because I'm going to clean up the container and add some more compost. There we go. And here now exactly this is what we're dealing with. So these are the new growths here, and these are the new roots, and this is what we need to keep intact. I do have some Sarracenia here at the back that I want to remove. See, there's a lost little soul over here. Okay, so one more clump. Again, original label. They weren't named varieties originally, they were crosses that had been made. So the labels just said which the parents had been, like crosses with of hybrids. Okay, I can actually see a flower spike in there. I hope I will not lose flowers as a result of this division, but I probably will. And out we come. Whoops. Complete with snail shell. And another one. Another nice clump showing the healthy new growths. And then this, whatever it is. Okay, so this is what I'm left with. And actually what I'm going to do is just take off the moss now, because the mix here I'm going to reuse it. I will actually put in some fresh peat at the end, but I will use what's here. Giving it a shake to make sure we leave as much of the peat and sand mix behind as can be left. Okay, let's go divide these plants. Here I am with my trug full of Sarracenia alata hybrids that I want to divide, and a watering can full of rainwater, which I'm now going to empty into this other trug. So just popping these into the water, and so I'm just going to soak these for a little bit, try and clean them off so that we can see exactly what's going on with that clump. So here's my first clump of alata. Now Sarracenia alata is one of the easier Sarracenia to divide, and purpurea is one of the most difficult. But the rule of thumb is that you must try and ensure that each division you make has some roots attached. And if we look here carefully, you can see how we have the new growths here, and we have the roots, and new growths with plenty of shooting eyes and the roots. Now I don't actually want to divide this into small pieces for a pot. You might want to. Now what you need to do is try and find where the divisions are, and that's why soaking it in the water is necessary. And for each division you want this new growth, at least one, and plenty of roots. Now if I move in here, and I am just kind of feeling my way, and actually this plant I can really feel wants to divide round about here, which would be very convenient for me because I want big divisions, not little wimpy ones. So I'm just gonna let it divide as it wants. Just dunking it again in the water, and here we can see how it is coming apart. Whoops! Came apart and fell into the water. Okay, so here is really quite a healthy division, and we can see here This portion here is the older part of the rhizome that's not doing so much, not so productive at the moment. It's the new stuff that we need to concentrate on. So that's one division, and I guess I'll just clean it off by taking the moss away like that. Okay, let's go on to the next one. So we have this other clump here, and just looking for the new growths. So in theory, you know, the bigger you leave the divisions, the stronger they'll be and the more likely they are to do well with the minimum of nurturing. So in theory, you could take off this little fellow if you wanted to, but certainly if I'm going to plant this outdoors in my garden, that is not the road I want to be going down. So I'm going to see if I can get this clump to divide in two. And there, yeah, it divides so easily, it just wants to come apart. Here's another fine hefty clump with so many new growths here that could all be individual plants if I wanted, and plenty of roots down below that will probably go along with them. Round the back we have a little flower spike coming, and well, it's less interesting round this side. Oh, well, flower spike. This is when you know that you left it a bit too long. Now, I think this clump is probably going to be okay just as is. Maybe I will divide it in two, round about here. Like I said, I don't want two small clumps, but I want to improve the vigour of my plants. Okay, so you see how easily that broke? That's brilliant. And another division. Okay, so I think what I really need to do now is just to clean a lot of these up, because there's a lot of moss on them and I want to take it out and just make them look a whole lot better. And here we are with all the divisions I have left, from the bigger clumps over here to the very small little putsy ones here that might be more trouble than they're worth to actually do something with. So I will see how many I have left when I plant up my 3 planters and decide whether or not I'm going to reuse the likes of this. These will need a lot of hydration and minding going forward, and I think I have enough. Now, sometimes you'll find that the new eyes lead on to an older part of the rhizome like this, where there's no new growth coming out of, and this whole thing is not going to produce any new leaves or any new flowers. So what we can do is just cut it off in the same way as you might cut off the spent piece from an old iris. Just make sure you get a nice clean cut, and then it just makes this division easier to pop into a pot, or it takes up less space in your planter. Now, if this were a very important cultivar or a very rare plant, then what I might do after I cut off the useless rhizome is try and propagate it and try and get it to send up new shoots. But I certainly don't have the patience for that, so we're just going to discard these pieces. Now it's time to replant these divisions, and I'm going to choose the healthiest and the biggest of these divisions and take them over to the other side. Okay, off we go, and I'll be needing this. Okay, time to plant them up. The mix I've been using in my Sarracenia planters is 50% moss peat and 50% horticultural sand. Now, when you buy the horticultural sand, do test it, because I've had some bad results before with ones that are supposed to be pH neutral but actually end up not that at all. We have 50% of the horticultural sand, as I said. You could use perlite instead. Personally, I don't like perlite because it has a way of moving to the top of the container, and then you end up with like loads of white dots off the surface of your soil, and I don't like that at all. Now, this mix has been in here for a long time, so I'm just going to freshen it up by adding some moss peat. As we all know, moss peat is not a renewable source and we shouldn't use it unless absolutely necessary. But these plants have grown and evolved to need moss peat, so I think there isn't really an alternative. And a little bit more, I think. Now what I'm going to do here is just mix this around a bit. I'm not adding any horticultural sand because I don't have any. We're in lockdown, as you'll recall, and I can't get my hands on any. But I think that this mix should be sufficient. Now, let's position our plants. And we have various alata plants. And I'm just going to position them first to see how they will look and then plant them. I think that's probably enough to make a good impact and for the plants not to be too crowded. So let's get them into the ground. And so just with my trowel, making a bit of a hole. Gosh, if only it was so easy to plant other plants. You know, when you're digging in the garden and the ground is so blooming hard. Well, this is very easy to dig in because it's all just so loose. Okay, so that is my planter all planted up. And of course, when planting the Sarracenia, make sure that the soil level is below the overflow hole level. And the final thing, of course, is to give these plants a good watering with rainwater. And they are going to do so well. They certainly look so much better now, but I bet they go from strength to strength. It's going to be interesting to see how this flower bud does, whether it's going to abort as a result of the division or whether it's going to come out beautifully. I'll keep you informed. And that brings me to the end of this Sarracenia dividing video, which I hope you enjoyed. I hope you found useful, and I hope it will provide you with good information to grow these plants outdoors yourselves and to divide them. Now, if you want more information about growing Sarracenia outdoors, check out the other video I made about doing just that, which I'll link to here. Thanks for watching. Bye.